You know, there's a major geopolitical alliance out there, one designed to literally shape the future of the Indo-Pacific. And right now, it's facing an existential threat from its most powerful member. So how did we get here? And what in the world happens next? We break down huge global stories just like this every single week, so if you're into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
All right, let's just dive right into it. The big question we're tackling in this explainer is one that's being whispered and sometimes shouted in government buildings from Washington to New Delhi. Is Donald Trump's second term about to kill the Quad alliance?
So to really get to the bottom of this, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the crisis as it's happening right now. Then we're going to hit rewind to see how the Quad even got started. We'll get to know the key players and what each of them really wants before we zoom in on the great power game that's driving this whole thing. And finally, we'll look at what's at stake for the future of this absolutely critical alliance.
Okay, let's get straight to the heart of it. The alliance is in serious turmoil, and it all kicked off with a massive economic shock.
50%. That's the number that sent absolute shockwaves through India. Back in August of 2025, President Trump dropped a bombshell: new tariffs on Indian goods, some as high as 50%. Now, this wasn't just some minor trade adjustment. This was a political earthquake.
And look, these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking about huge, vital sectors of the Indian economy. We're talking apparel, jewelry, footwear, chemicals. These industries are part of a massive $87 billion export market to the US. Suddenly, all of that is at risk, which threatens potentially millions of jobs.
And this quote just perfectly captures the tension. See, the economic pressure is one thing, but it's backed up by this really harsh rhetoric. President Trump has called the long-standing trade relationship with India a one-sided disaster. And language like that, well, it just blows up the foundation of trust you absolutely need between strategic partners.
So, as if the tariffs and the tough talk weren't bad enough, then this piece of news dropped. Reports are now suggesting that the president is thinking about just skipping the upcoming Quad summit in India altogether. For India, the host nation, that's not just a scheduling conflict, it is a massive diplomatic snub that sends a clear signal the U.S. might be backing away from the very alliance it's supposed to lead.
So you have to ask, how did we get to this breaking point? Well, to really understand why the Quad is so fragile today, we need to go back to its really dramatic and kind of unexpected beginnings.
Okay, first, just a super quick refresher for everyone. The Quad, which stands for the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, is what you'd call a strategic forum. So think of it this way. It's not a formal military alliance like NATO, where an attack on one is an attack on all. It's more of a flexible group, a club of the US, India, Japan, and Australia. And their whole goal is to keep the Indo-Pacific region free, open, and stable.
Now, what's so fascinating about the Quad is its roller coaster history. I mean, look at this. It was actually born from the tragedy of the 2004 tsunami, when these four democracies just jumped into action together and proved they could cooperate in a crisis. It got a bit more formal in 2007, only to completely fall apart a year later. Then it gets brought back from the dead in 2017, and then it gets supercharged in 2021 with the first ever summit for the leaders. This whole history just shows its massive potential, but also how much it really depends on sheer political will.
So, who exactly are these four nations? I mean, yeah, they share this broad vision for the Indo-Pacific, but to really see the cracks that are starting to show, you have to understand what each one brings to the table, and just as importantly, what each one wants to get out of the deal.
First up, you've got the United States. For decades, it's been the security anchor of this whole thing, bringing unmatched naval power and intelligence. And it's put its money where its mouth is, committing over $1.5 billion since 2021. The motivation has always been crystal clear: keep America as the top dog in the Pacific and build a powerful counterweight to China's influence. And that right there is exactly why this sudden change in policy is so jarring for everyone else.
Next, you've got India, the strategic anchor of the Indian Ocean. I mean, its sheer size and its location just make it totally indispensable. For New Delhi, the Quad is a really important way to push back against Chinese aggression on its northern border. But, and this is so important to understand, India is fierce about protecting its strategic autonomy. It wants to call its own shots. It refuses to be seen as just a junior partner to the US, so it's constantly doing this delicate balancing act.
Then there's Japan. Japan is really the economic and tech engine of the whole group. Tokyo's strategy is all about leading on future tech. We're talking 5G, AI, you name it, and setting the standards for the entire region.
By funding these high-quality infrastructure projects, it's basically offering an alternative to China's big spending plans. And for Japan, this economic leadership is deeply tied to its own security. Promoting a stable, rules-based system is the best defense it has.
And finally, rounding out the group, you've got Australia, the southern anchor. As a member of the Five Eyes intelligence network, it's a huge player on the security front, but its economic role is just as critical. I mean, check this out. It supplies half the world's lithium. That's essential for pretty much all modern tech and green energy. So for Canberra, which has faced some really aggressive economic pressure from Beijing, the Quad is a lifeline. It's a way to find new partners and build strength in numbers.
So you have these four very different players, each with their own interests. But what was it that brought them all rushing back to the table in 2017 with such urgency? Well, the answer can pretty much be summed up in one word: China. This chart, wow, it really puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? China's military spending hasn't just grown, it has absolutely exploded. It's more than quadrupled in just 2 decades. That fire hose of cash has built a world-class navy and has fueled some really aggressive moves in places like the South China Sea. This, right here, is the #1 reason the Quad was brought back from the dead. And that brings us right back to today. With the U.S. looking like it might be taking a step back, the alliance is at this huge crossroads, and the stakes, well, they could not be higher, especially for a country like India. For India, the dilemma here is just incredibly stark. A strong working Quad gives them security. It helps them push back against China, and it secures all those vital shipping lanes in the Indian Ocean. But a weak Quad, that could leave India dangerously exposed, basically stuck between a rock and a hard place, with an unreliable US on one side and an assertive China on the other. And you can bet the anxiety is spreading. Japan is so worried about the US getting shaky that it's actually pushing to make the Quad more formal, hoping to lock in that American commitment. Australia is basically in damage control mode, trying to get everyone to just keep talking. And inside the US itself, there's this huge split between the America First idea and that long-held belief that these alliances are actually what make America strong in the first place. And that, right there, leads us to the final critical question. The Quad was put together to be a democratic anchor in a really turbulent part of the world. But if its most powerful member starts pulling away, it leaves this massive power vacuum. And that creates a deeply, deeply uncertain future for everyone involved. So here's the bottom line. Is President Trump killing the Quad? The evidence we have suggests it's on life support. The trust that holds the whole thing together has been seriously damaged by tariffs, by rhetoric, and by these diplomatic snubs. But the core reason it exists, the strategic logic for these democracies to work together, that hasn't gone away. The alliance is on the brink for sure, but it might not be totally broken just yet. What do you think? Can the Quad actually survive without strong American leadership? Let us know what you're thinking down in the comments. And hey, if you found this breakdown useful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.